evening. I call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the September 21st, 2020 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Anita and Kevin seconds. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we shall move on. Public comments. This is an opportunity for anybody from the public that would like to speak to anything on the agenda can speak tonight. That's on the agenda tonight. Would anybody like to speak? Seeing none, we shall move on. Consent agenda, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. And further, the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.3 for information. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sipes, seconded by Councillor Heffer. Any comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I think it's a typo on 522, property standards. It says Queen Street, Belgrave in the one report, Queen Street, Blythe the next, with the same topic, had to do with odor. So I'm just wondering which town is it?
Jamie, would you have a response to that? Or
That would be Kirk's
So,
activity report.
Kirk, are you?
He's not here, so
Okay.
we can definitely we can follow up with Kirk and have him send an email out to council. My best guess would likely be Blythe.
Are we fine with that, Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Thank you kindly. Go ahead, Councillor Sight, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yeah, Reeve Bailey, my question is relating to the rec and the bills and accounts. I did notice in the activities report that there was a number of calls made to members I'm assuming it's the members of the entire facility, but more of the what is the weights, the fitness center, sorry, and I know a number of refunds were issued. Was the refunds based solely on the time from when COVID shutted the door until physically when it reopened, and those months, is that when the refunds were based on?
Through your worship, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Reeve.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Councillor Heffer?
That's through you, Reeve. A question for Vicky on the line of the admin in here. It shows, would you just be able to break that down to community centers for $459K and expenses $125? Could you just sort of just read that to us a little bit? On where are we here? Where is that? Yeah, 5.25.
Yeah, it's Donna's finance report.
Or sorry, Donna's not here. That was her. Okay.
Through your worship, I can
Yes,
look
go ahead.
into it and respond back to council.
Thank you very much, Vicky.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, it was just, I was very pleased to see that the county passed the motion to accept ACW's motion about supporting farmers regarding the gas tax.
Mm-hmm. Seeing no more questions, I call the motion. All in favor?
Carbon
Carries.
tax, sorry.
Yeah, carbon tax. Carries. Public meetings and hearings and delegations, 6.1. It's a public meeting. R.J. Burnside Associations Limited presentation of engineers report for the Charter Municipal Drain 2020. Would you come in? So we have Gil Gerard and Rochelle King.
No,
No,
Jeremy,
sorry.
Taylor and Trevor Kipford.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve and Council, for giving us a chance to speak here tonight. My name is Trevor Kipford. I'm with RJ Burnside and Associates, and Jeremy Taylor, also with RJ Burnside and Associates. We're both engineers for the company. So we're just presenting tonight on the Charter Municipal Drain. And Carson, I don't know if you had any luck.
Yep, so if you exit out of that presentation,
Yep.
it's, the drainage report is open in the, yep, right there.
Right there, perfect. Okay, let's see if we can make that as big as possible. Oh, guess that'll do for now. So the Charter Municipal Drain, is located just to the northwest of Blythe. And it's in between, it's on Moncrief Road between Curry Line and Scott Line. And it services approximately 62 hectares or 153 acres of land. It was last improved in 1968, so it's a little tough. I'll maybe go to that screen over there. Oh, but I guess the pointer's not gonna show up on the screen. But there is a section, a dashed line that I guess you can't see very well, but that was last done in 1968. The drain was requested to be improved by Von Toll as a result of erosion issues on his property. And if you see that thick black line sort of surrounding, the thick black line sort of going all the way around at the very bottom end, so it's sort of to the far left of the screen, where that line ends, that is Vaughn's property. So right now he's experiencing some erosion issues. There's surface water that is taking topsoil and whatnot from his land. So we were appointed by the township, and we completed a survey and investigation of the land. And we've come up with a solution to address these problems that includes the following. Approximately 410 meters of concrete and plastic pipe, 3 concrete structures, 1 engineered berm with a buried and surface water inlet, 10 meters of open drain construction, and we are also proposing to destroy a portion of the 1968 charter drain, and also looking to abandon another municipal drain that was servicing these properties, which was the McGowan drain, which was work was last done in 1927. So all fairly outdated infrastructure. The cost estimate for the entire project that we've come up with at this point is about $170,000. Of that, our construction consists of approximately $97,000 of that. We have approximately $7,000 in allowances. Going back to landowners, we've estimated engineering at approximately $50,000. And other costs such as net HST, permitting fees and whatnot, we've estimated at approximately $16,000. So as I mentioned, the total cost for the project we have estimated at $170,000, and we're anticipating getting about $43,000 in grant from OMAFRA. And we've also successfully applied for a grant from the Huron Clean Water Project, which we're receiving $5,000 that we'll be contributing towards this project as well. And at this time, I'll open up the floor for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very kindly. Does the council have questions? Go ahead, Councillor Pepper.
Yeah, to you, Reeve, you just said about the 5,000 from the clean water.
Mhm.
Does that all go back to the farmers?
Yeah.
Like not to the engineering, it goes to the farmers, I think?
Yes, so that will go against the assessments that we've determined on the project.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Through you, Reeve. Can I ask a sort of a technical question?
By all means.
Okay, this is in the berm. It's between Tolls and Charters. It's a fairly large one
Mhm.
and almost a dam, but there's gonna be a catch basin, right, for
Mhm.
surface. How high off the ground will the water flow into it? What's the height before the top of it, before you reach the top of it?
So I believe, without having the numbers right in front of me, I believe it's about a foot between the actual bottom of the berm and the inlet for the catch basin. We actually have a surface water inlet, which is basically a perforated pipe that will take away anything below that catch basin.
Hick bottom?
A heck of bottom, yep.
So
that-
there is one there, because that's what I was hoping they would be.
Yes, and that was part of the reason we received that Huron Clean Water grant, because if we had the catch basin right in the bottom portion of the berm, that's something the conservation authorities are a little less prone to be giving out those grants.
There's
That's,
too much water there. Yeah.
gets away too quickly, so they like the temporary
There's
storage.
too much left over as well.
Mhm.
That's a lot of water behind that size of a berm. And I don't know how long it would take for it to disappear, so having a hick bottom there is perfect.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns from council? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Has the solution been communicated or discussed with the landowners of this drain improvement?
So we did have one information meeting with the landowners involved, where we presented costs and a solution to the drainage problem. Following that meeting, we had some adjustments to our design and whatnot, and came back with what we thought was an appropriate compromise to the concerns that were brought up to us. And we then discussed our adjusted design and costs and whatnot to the landowners. Had that discussion with them, and that's where we get to where we are now, with our final design and what we think is the most appropriate given the circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Not seeing any. I would like to thank you gentlemen very much.
Thank you.
I would now like to ask if there's anybody in the public gallery that would like to speak to this. If you don't mind stepping up, saying your name and address.
Vaughn Toll, I'm the farmer that initiated this drain. And this water's been running through our farm for years, and I don't know how many times it's been fixed, and it had to be changed. I have there's 3 hectares, 6.7 acres involved here, and my cost is $16,000, which works out to about $2,400 an acre. The Charters property, which is the offending property where all the water comes from, has 55 acres. Their cost is about $29,000, which works out to $526 an acre. And I don't know why the offending property has to pay so much less than I do when I have so many less acres in it. And I'm the one that's being damaged.
So that'll be a quarter, through your worship,
Yes.
that'll be a quarter revision discussion.
Well, then we better get to it.
Yeah, so the process is council, if council deems the project to be sufficient, council will provisionally adopt the bylaw, give first and second reading to approve that project, and then there's a certain time period, council will set the quarter revision date and appoint 3 quarter revision members, and that's where the quarter revision will hear appeals related to the assessment.
And as I say, it's the Chargers property, that's where all the water comes from. And nobody else, like Mr. Boss is getting hit awful hard here. And he has no surface water at all coming our way. And it's all off the one farm, and they're getting off like a bandit here. And Mr. Kipfer and I have had a discussion about that, and he hasn't changed his opinion about it. I don't think they've got enough acres involved either. Like, did you, take all the acres
Sir,
off?
Sir, you'll have to address the council.
Okay, I wonder if is this a new drain? Or is it just a repair on an old drain?
Could you please, with council's permission, could you please answer that?
Yes, this is an improvement to an existing municipal drain, that's section 78, improvement under the Drainage Act.
Okay, so the hectares that are involved here, or acres, were they taken off the old assessment from 68 or 9?
With council's permission, could you answer that?
Yes, so the acres assessed were a combination of us reviewing the watershed based on contour mapping, as well as the existing municipal drain reports, both the 68 report as well as the surrounding municipal drains that service these lands.
So did you change
So
the,
I think at this time, I think we're just, the council's just deciding whether to move forward with this. There seems to be a lot of discussion that maybe didn't take place, should take place, or did take place, and no agreement came to, we're not sure. I'm just gonna refer to my clerk for a minute. I believe that we should be just voting on this and moving it forward or declining it, and then those conversations are had at the next meeting. Do I understand that properly?
Through your worship, at this point, council needs to make a decision of whether they want to proceed with the project as presented by Burnside, and then if the concern is related to assessment, the quarter revision is the mechanism for appeals to the assessment.
So the council could turn this down because they feel it's not properly done yet?
If council did not agree with the engineer's report that was presented, council has the ability to ask Burnside to make changes.
Okay.
However, not being an expert in the engineering field, if council feels it's beneficial, you might want to ask either Trevor or Jeremy to speak to the rationale of why they designed the project to this again, in hopes of providing some clarity.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to you, sir, as the speaker. Not to cut you off, but this is not the place for the conversation you're having. It's at the next meeting, should it pass tonight. So it's not that I'm trying to cut you off or anything, it's just we have protocol which we have to follow.
I understand that.
Yes, and I appreciate that. So if you don't mind, we do hear some concerns here. All the councillors have heard some concerns. If we could have one of the gentlemen step back up and just try to explain it a little better for council, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And I guess may I just clarify, I guess what you guys would want further explanation on at this time?
I think we heard there was a situation where it was a lot of money to fix an old drain when there was concerns that it should be a new one for that kind of money, and I'm gonna hand it over to Deputy Reeve Sipes because he had his hand up for a follow-up.
I think what I'm hearing is, has RJ Burnside heard all of these, Mr. Toll's concerns today? Have these concerns been addressed as it relates to this proposal? Was there any other concerns as it relates to this proposal, and how did those changes relate in the change to the proposal? Is guess where I'm coming from. I'm concerned in the fact that if you can't solve everybody's problem, it's an engineer. You're trying to make the best solution for everybody who's involved, and I get that. But there is some concerns that I'm hearing that it almost as if sounds that they weren't addressed at the report, and clarify to me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing. So that's maybe the clarification that we're looking for, or at least I am, as it relates to your report.
Nope, thank you very much for the question. I 100% agree with Mr. Toll. He certainly has an erosion issue on his property, and at the initial information meeting that we had in February, we proposed an initial design, and this was a good avenue for us to get input from all of the property owners. I would say the main ones would be Mr. Toll, of course, the charter property, the D charter property, who I've spoken with a number of times. They have a farmer renting their land. We've had a number of discussions with them regarding their concerns and their desires for this project. And the other big property owner is Mr. Boss on the other side of the road. We've had contact with him throughout the project, trying to address what he's wanting to get out of the project and whatnot as well. We have presented what we think is the best solution for the watershed, for the community as a whole. And of course that comes at a cost to all of those involved. And the way we've assessed it, and I realize this isn't the time to discuss that, we've assessed it in what we think is a fair manner, based on what is being proposed, and we feel that this is going to help address the issues that this watershed is facing at this time.
Thank you very much, sir. Having said all that, I'm going to read the motion now and see if we have a mover in a second. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby adopts the engineer's report for the Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020 as presented by RJ Burnside and Associated Limits. And further, that the Council provisionally adopts the first and second reading of the bylaw number 55/2020. Do I have a mover? second call.
I will move it for discussion.
I have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Palmer is the seconder. For discussion, I'm gonna open the floor up to Deputy Reeve Sight.
Just want to, excuse me, as sometimes I'm directionally challenged, so I need to kind of clarify. So the farm that has the water issues, is it the farm at the top of where it says B&M toll or the bottom?
It's at the bottom, and it's too bad my laser pointer doesn't work on the screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the question is that that's the farm we're trying to solve the water.
No,
That's not the farm we're trying to solve the water?
that's a private residence up there. That, it's, the land surrounding that is part of the problem. And the, I wish I could get up and show you.
Yeah, we could. Actually, that's a good way to do it. We can use the mouse. So I will zoom in here a little bit. So right here, so this is actually another municipal drain, this gray line here. This is the outlet to our proposed municipal drain, it's the Hallahan Caldwell drain. And this dark dashed line is representing the course of our proposed drain. So we come up here through this toll property, this is Vaughn's property right here. This is where it's experienced a lot of the erosion, so water will come in large events, will come down here and will wash out the topsoil and whatnot through Vaughn's property. So our proposed solution, so we have the drain coming up here, and then this property line here is where we propose that engineered berm to help block the water from getting onto Mr. Toll's property. And then the pipe, again, it's a little bit difficult to see, but it goes up on this sort of skew and crosses the road to service the Boss property. So essentially, the system is protecting Vaughn's property and providing an outlet for both the Charter and the Boss properties. if
Thank
that
you.
helps clarify.
Any other councillors have any questions, concerns, or comments? Not seeing any. I have a mover and a seconder. I call the motion. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carries. Thank you. So you will be notified at other meetings that you guys can handle. That's where that takes place to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very kind. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Thank you.
Go.
Okay, 6.2. Thank you, gentlemen. Gil Gerard and Rochelle King now. Blythe Festival, update on the Blythe Festival 2021 and request for use of the portion of the Blythe Fairgrounds. Are they out in the,
Yeah, they should be.
Gil, where are you?
I'm right here, Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So, I'm rarely at a loss for words coming to talk to council, as you can all attest. But we are facing what is really, the biggest challenge the festival has ever faced. The great savings, I think, has been, we're coming off of back-to-back great seasons, and we've been really smart, and we managed to, back before Christmas, we paid off the entire accumulated deficit that was sitting at the theater for long before my time, and so we were able to start this exciting 2020 season without owing anybody any money, and that was really great. And then COVID hit and all that happened. So we, of course, were the first to close, and we'll be the last to open. And trying to figure out how to continue to fulfill our mission, to give voice to the region and the country, to continue to put on the kinds of shows that we do. And what does that look like when, as I mentioned in my report, and I'm sure you are all painfully aware of, health officials are now telling us it could be 2021, 2022, 2023 before we get back to being able to have large public gatherings like that, and the consequences for the festival would be enormous. So how to move forward, and we spent a lot of time thinking about it. I didn't include, just because it's so heartbreaking to look at, we had someone come in and do drawings of the Memorial Hall if we had actually strictly observed 6 feet by 6 feet away from the aisles and 6 feet away from each other. And on the days when I can laugh about it, I call it the baker's dozen season, because it's basically 13 seats in Memorial Hall and not a lot more. And then you have complications like, what do you do about the elevator, right? If people need to be able to go up in the elevator that we have right now is basically a wheelchair, and you take a deep breath before you close the door, right? Like, the idea of how do we carry on. So we were, one thing we've done incredibly well in the past is great big outdoor shows, like the Outdoor Donnellys, which I know a lot of folks in this room saw at least once. So to be able to do shows outdoors again is really what we're looking at as the most viable way of getting the festival back up and running. From what we've been hearing right now, I mean, the idea of being able to do an audience of 100 people outdoors, again, physically distant from each other, and having an outdoor stage that we would probably have on 3 sides to be able to perform for as many people as close as we could, while still keeping all of those health regulations in place. And we got talking about the idea of going back to the Threshers Park, going back to the Blythe Fairgrounds, which is where we performed the Outdoor Donnellys before. And that particular section where the Donnellys was performed now has multiple poles and parking spots for RVs. So it's not quite as great as it was. But there's that beautiful, now former soccer field that's there, which is a bit of a natural amphitheater too. It's got that big beautiful hill on it. It backs right onto the G2G trail too. Has all that tree line across the back, big fences. So we went out there and we actually were fortunate enough to be able to engage both Dwayne and Vicky in a conversation out there. And we also got Dave Cook, who has been working, looking after that property since he was 14 years old, quite some time ago. And Dave, he walked us through everything that he knew about that property and what he thought the challenges would be and what he thought the opportunities were there. And he, I think it'd be fair to say, was excited about the idea. The other thing which I know should be a concern for council too with that particular site is the Threshers and the Barn Dance Society. So the Barn Dance, as you may be aware, we're supposed to have their final barn dance in Blythe this summer, which they hold in the arena every year, and they had to cancel that. And so when I started having this idea, I reached out to them at that time and I said, listen, we're thinking about, could we build a stage out there, and might it be viable for you guys to use it too, to be able to put, bands up there and be able to actually have your concert happen there. And I would say there was a lot of excitement at that possibility, just because right now they can't really do any of what they were built to do. And same thing talking to the Threshers, and I don't know if you noticed on that weekend, it was beautiful weather for Threshers, and yet they couldn't hold the event at all. And who knows what will happen to that event in the future anyway. I mean, how can you amass, thousands of people in one fairgrounds over the course of a weekend? We don't know what that's going to look like for some time. But if we were able to say, look, you could have, some of the incredible musical acts and stuff come and perform on this stage on the Threshers weekend, or alternatively saying, we've got a concert that maybe would fit with what the Threshers wanted, are already planning, and maybe we can work together and be able to keep the place alive and moving. So really, what I've come to council to ask, what we've come to council to ask, is for the opportunity to use the fairgrounds to try to, favorite word of 2020, to try to pivot our operations and be able to start again so that we don't miss another season entirely, which I think would be catastrophic. in so many ways, not just for us as an organization, but also I think for the community as a whole. I think losing what Blythe Festival is really, really hard. You know, I talked to somebody just this weekend, a wonderful former retired United Church minister who's been coming with his family for 40 years to Bonanza Weekend. He told me that on Bonanza Weekend he just came and stayed in an Airbnb in town anyway, just because he just wanted to be near the festival, even though there was nothing on. You know, so I think the possibility to be able to start over again on that site is tremendous. And I think that we can actually do it in a way that is totally feasible. And what I put to council in my little report there was the idea of, and I don't know how we would go about constructing what that is, like some kind of a lease agreement or what that would look like. Basically to say that the festival could use that site at the Threshers Park for the next 5 years to try to build up what we can there. And our goal would be to have live performance happening there by this spring. And we would be looking to fence it. I think I also put in there, I think it would be great if council could help us work with the Conservation Authority too to plant some more trees, just like the tree planting program that I know council already has with residents. It would be great to have more trees planted out around that site. And Dave Cook told me there used to be more trees and then people kept backing into them, so hopefully we can resolve some of that as well.
Bigger trees.
And a little bit more lighting, but yeah, so that's really what our ask is. I'm happy to take any questions at all.
Well, Gil, I
Anybody
want
has?
to tell you, I am very excited. I'm very excited about this, and I know council's gonna get behind this. I have a vision. Right now, I have an empty trailer park. Next year, he's gonna have a show here, and he's gonna give me 100 people with their trailers right there to come over and watch his shows, and we all win. Always think of something else. I think it's a great idea. I believe the council should get behind it. I think we should help you in any way we can. I want to see our trailer park full, so this is fantastic all the way around. I know you didn't mention the trailer park, but if you're going to help us, and we're going to help you, I hope. I'm going to open it up to council. I think it's a great idea. I'm going to start with Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Gil, I congratulate you for thinking out of the box. It's really something. As I was reading it, like, whoa, good guys.
Yeah.
Couple little thoughts though.
Yeah.
Is drainage okay?
Yeah, Dave Cook told us that the drainage in this site is actually good. It's all drained, that whole field. He said that there's one section which he pointed out to us that does have trouble like in early spring. He said like as soon as the runoff happens. But oddly, it's actually not down in the basin, it's up on the hill itself. And he said that they've tried multiple times to dig out the drain that's there and try to get it fixed, but he said it's usually dry by May anyway, and I don't think it would be, it's not anywhere near where we wanna actually put the stage, so
Yeah.
I think it'll be okay.
And my other thought is people would just sit on the grass and watch.
Yeah, our thought is a couple of things. So one is people being able to bring their own chairs, which could be helpful, I think, for everybody in terms of COVID precautions too. Though we would also have chairs on site. And the other thing we are looking at right now is trying to figure out how we'll deal with sun. As you've all experienced, like June, July, even August this year, like, you know, 42, 43, 45 degree days, and how you do a 2 o'clock matinee in the middle of July with weather like that, I think it's a non-starter, but trying to figure out how we could move show times later in the day so that it's not as hot, but also figuring out, can we do things like either, you know, do we talk to somebody like, Brightspan about trying to put like a big cover over top, local corporation, or do we look at something like small pods? Like we've been looking at some other examples from all over the world. Some people are building little, like in the UK, there's a music producer that has now built little, basically platforms that are 4 feet by 4 feet, and people are sitting on those with a little canopy above them. And if we could figure out how to make sure that people could still see the stage, then I think that that would be a possibility as well. Did you have another question?
Yes,
Go
I'm
for
gonna
it,
hog the stage.
please, so to speak.
Well put, eh?
Yeah.
Once you get going again in the theater, like you're talking 5 years with this, and maybe longer, so would you incorporate the outdoor with the indoor? Have you thought that far along?
Yes, please. I mean, that is what we'd love to do. If we could get to that point where we come out the other side and we now have an outdoor stage that's working, and we also have the indoor stage that's working, and we have our little studio theater that's also working, if we can get all three of them going on a, you know, on a beautiful weekend in the village of Blythe, I think it could be fantastic to have all of those pieces there.
Other questions, comments from council? Paul?
Yeah, I don't wanna be a stickler in the mud,
No,
but,
please.
this is maybe more for Vicky. We aren't going to be needing another soccer, that's never been used for years, I take it, but.
Through you, your worship, no, it's not been used for years.
My understanding is it's actually no longer big enough, was part of the problem, at the time, the
Yeah.
regulation was different.
Perfect, thanks.
It's fair though, I got kids that play soccer, it's a good question.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Two, there are soccer fields in use right now, by the two of them. The position and location is almost identical to where other outdoor concerts have been played in that, more or less the amphitheater. It's been used many times, and I'd also want to make a comment in favor to it as they've had rock concerts down there, and you'd be surprised of how little the sound comes back just by the way it's facing and the way the hill and everything goes into farmland behind it, that they're had very little complaints about noise during any of those ones before.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful location. Natural amphitheater.
Yeah.
So we just, go ahead, Deputy Recite.
No, I have been curiously optimistic about what this was going to look like for the Blythe Festival since COVID hit, because we all had a feeling that we weren't gonna have more than 15 people in a place anytime soon, at least until a vaccine. And regardless of whether you're a Trump fan or not, and whether a vaccine comes in January, it isn't going to matter, because it still has to get to 200 million people in the US and more than Canada in order to see if it's gonna work. So I don't see us having large venues of space where you're gonna have 200 to 300 people in a space, less than 6 feet, till at least the end of next year, at least. And I think ultimately from you have thought about the outlining. This is something that you can enhance the experience of the Blythe Festival, not only pivot, but this is not something that's temporary. You're not looking at this as a temporary fix. This is something that you're physically building and then going to add to the complement of the Blythe Festival. And so, at the end of the day, for the municipality, it is an underutilized piece of property from the municipality's perspective. Like, we've talked about that at this table many times with the whole campground in Blythe and how it's being underutilized. To utilize this piece of property, in my mind, as Reed Bailey is indicating, is a possibility for both. It is an absolute possibility of both utilizing, supporting Blythe Festival, and capitalizing on the idea of enhancing your aspect to Blythe, but also capitalizing an underutilized piece of property from a BIA perspective, from a bringing people in, because if we could utilize that, and space is limited, and obviously have an understanding of that, then really everybody wins. The festival wins, we win because we get an underutilized piece of property that's actually now being used, and the municipality wins because we got tourism back in the municipality, and I personally believe that if we can support Blythe Festival in this particular instance, we're not only successfully supporting Blythe Festival, but we're also successfully supporting the BIA. And we're then involved in that because we ultimately, at the end of the day, have a responsibility to the ratepayers of Blythe and North Huron to bring economics back into that small town, because Blythe Festival resonated a lot of economic development in Blythe, and town and the shops and that kind of stuff. I don't know what they're doing, how they're doing, but I can't imagine they're having the same year as they would have had if Blythe Festival was operating at a full capacity. So I commend the thought process that went into this, and I commend the fact that you're thinking about it now, going into a winter season where we have no idea what winter's gonna bring. And if the goal is to have a play played there in spring, I'm with you. Like I'm with you all the way. When can I build a hammer and I'll be there to swing it? So at the end of the day, I think, rent free or not, as your report says, that's a discussion with regards to an agreement, and the council needs to get on board with that. But from a concept of what this report says, I'm in complete support of what this looks like, because it is an underutilized piece of property that the municipality needs to work on with the BIA, with Blythe Festival, and the residents and the ratepayers of Blythe to help spur that economy again.
Go ahead, Councilor Paul.
Just a quick comment. Could you imagine Pigeon King with real pigeons?
Right? Yeah.
Perfect.
Or the Lorna Bray show with the real plane.
Yeah.
Right? Sure.
So-
I also, and something you just pointed out a little bit there, Councillor Sype, is something else we're hoping to be able to do that we've been very conscious of this summer, because the festival has not been running. A lot of the local service groups and churches have not been able to have country suppers, which is a big deal. And we're hoping, as we did with the Outdoor Donnellys when we ran it, was to be able to actually open up to allow like the Lions Club or allow the Legion to be able to have like barbecue up there, which is something that we've done before, so that audience members can also get food on site and be able to support those organizations as well as the theater team. Share the opportunity.
Well, I want to, just two things I'm going to touch on. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. As you hear, we're all excited about this. We're just so happy to have you here, both of you here. You may only be able to have theater for 100 people, but this week when they read this in the newspapers and they read this in the news, there's thousands of people that have been sitting at home for 6 months now, and they're going to say, there is a future. There's something to do next year. I don't have to sit at home anymore. So you may only be able to get 100 out or 200. We don't know. But it is a fantastic thought, and I know this council is going to support it. So second thing I want to say, do I have a motion from council to support and have staff work towards an agreement? I have Kevin and I have Rick seconding. Sorry, I have Mr. Faulkner and I have Mr. McBurney seconding. I'm supposed to get politically correct. You're just on the first night of it happening. Sure.
So the motion on the floor is that the council of the township of North Huron hereby directs township staff to work with the Blythe Festival for the preparation of a usage agreement to be presented to council.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? I just want to tell you, that is just great. I love that. Okay, reports.
Hugely grateful to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Wish you a short night.
We're done. 7.1, there's no clerk's report. 7.2, finance, there's no financial report. 7.3, rec and community services. 7.3.1, that the RC 2020-17 staffing requirements for the reopening of rec facilities. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated September 21st, 2020 regarding the staffing requirements for the reopening of the recreational facility centers for information purposes. And further, that the council authorizes staff to apply to the provincial government for phase 2 of the COVID-19 funding. Do I have a mover? I have Rick, Mr. McBurney, seconded by Mr. Palmer. Vicky, could you read this? Did you
Thank
talk to
Your
this,
Worship.
sorry?
No problem. Thank you, Your Worship. Before council this evening is a report regarding the additional staffing requirements required to reopen the recreational facilities in Blythe and Wingham. As you may recall, on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, and following their announcement, the province of Ontario declared a state of emergency, which resulted in the closure of businesses, facilities, and services across Ontario, including our recreational facilities. In May, the province announced a 3-phase recovery plan, which phased in the reopening of the businesses and services and the recreational facilities. The first phase allowed for the reopening of parks. The second phase allowed for reopening of the pool. And the third phase, which is the phase we're in now, allows for the reopening of the fitness center and the arena. When the reopening plans were announced, the township had no advance notice, and we were not prepared to open the facilities immediately. It required for us to recall staff that had been laid off to develop policies and procedures necessary to reopen the facilities. See, although the province was allowing recreational facilities to reopen, they were only allowing the facilities to open if they could meet certain conditions and operate under specific restrictions and limitations, including undertaking screening and contact tracing, restricting access to the facility to only those registered in programs, reduced capacity levels in programming areas. Currently, just to explain it further, currently we're operating in pods. So the pool is a pod, the fitness center is a pod, the arena is a pod, and the local health unit is allowing spectator seating to be a pod. So that's in Wingham, and then in Blythe, then it would be the arena floor and dressing rooms would be a pod. Their seating area, or spectator seating, would be a pod, and the community center would be a pod. Those limits, again, it's a maximum of 50 people in those pods, and it's the actual number of people that are allowed in those areas is dependent upon being able to maintain the social distancing. The other requirements or restrictions we have to deal with is reduced dressing room capacities, reduced change room capacities, no use of showers. We have to, there's an increase of cleaning and disinfection of all program areas, whereby we have to clean and disinfect in between groups usage, and that's the arena, pools, the pool, the fitness center, halls, meeting rooms, stands, change rooms. So to give kind of an example of that, the pool, for instance, if we have a group coming in to use, to take Aquafit, they will come in and they will take their Aquafit class. They will be permitted to change and leave, and then when they change, after they leave the change rooms, we have to go in and clean and disinfect in the change rooms. So it's after every program and that we have. And the same will apply for the arenas. We have to go in between each group that comes in and uses the facilities, and we have to clean and disinfect those dressing rooms. So in addition to increasing the cleaning disinfection of the dressing rooms and things, we also have to increase the frequency of cleaning and disinfection of washrooms. We have to clean and disinfect equipment between every use. So again, not only the change rooms with the pool, we have to clean and disinfect, the entire deck area, all the frequently touched areas, like the railings going in and out of the pool, things like that. In the fitness center, we have to, clean and disinfect in between usage by, groups that are scheduled in there. Again, we have to do frequently touched surfaces, door handles, levers, railings, ledges, dispensers, tables, chairs. It's a lot, it's quite a bit, and we've been working at getting our heads wrapped around it. And, we're trying to share out, as much as we can amongst our staff. We're not putting it all on facility operations staff. We're trying to use some of our part-time pool staff and some of our fitness staff to help do this, because it is such a huge undertaking. So when we called staff back, we started working on developing this reopening plan. And it was all based on the regulations at the time and up until last week when the report was submitted and things. The plan entails 4 stages. We felt the fitness center was the easiest one to open. So we did open that on Tuesday, August the 4th. The stage 2 was the aquatic center. We opened that on Tuesday, September the 8th. Stage 3 will be the arenas. We're hoping to have them available for rent starting on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And then the last stage will be the halls and the meeting rooms. So currently we are in stage 2 of our plan, with the aquatic center just opening. We are moving towards stage 3, which will be the arenas. We've been working closely with the ICE user groups. We've had lots of discussions and going back and forth. They have, in addition to the conditions and restrictions that were imposed by the province and the local health unit, the user groups also have restrictions that were established by their provincial governing bodies that must be adhered to. And it varies from one user group to the next as to what they're permitted to do. So the users have been working very hard at, kind of navigating their way through their own guidelines. And they've had to modify their programs. We've had to modify ours, and they've had to modify theirs, because of the limitations on the number of participants that can be on the ice surface, or in the pool, or in the fitness center, or in a fitness class. And in order, what's resulted in this, we didn't have the commitment at the beginning of September to open up either facility. At one point, we thought we were going to be opening 1 rink, period, for the township. But we basically needed to give the groups more time to work with their associations, figure out what they could and could not do, and find out what kind of interest was out there in their programs. So based on demand, we do have enough ICE demand to open up both facilities. And council may say, what warrants enough demand? So with the rental requests that we have in right now, from Minor Sports, Wingham is only short by 5 hours, in comparison to what it rented last year. And Blythe is, short, 4.75 hours in comparison to what it had last year. And although there were some groups that are not coming back, what happened was when the minor sports groups had to modify their programs, they needed more ice time. And so that's basically what occurred. Now, we will be able to, I won't say will, we may be able to make up those shortage of hours, because that's just minor sports groups. We have adult recreational leagues that are waiting to hear from us on whether or not we're going to allow them into the facility. Initially, we had offered the facility usage to them, but we said no change rooms. We've taken another look at that, and we're going to try it with minor sports to see if we can make it work with in the facilities. And if it will work, then we'll allow the adults to come in. The challenge with the adult groups is getting them out afterward, cause it's a social time for them too, right? Whereas what's helping us with the kids is that the provincial governing bodies are indicating to the associations, they have 15 minutes to get out of those dressing rooms. So there's, the enforcement of that will be put on the organization and not the municipality to get them out, so. Where we're at right now is, you know, it's, I guess it's important to note that, you know, when we do reopen the facilities, it will not be the same as it was in the past. People will not be able to float, you know, in and out of the facility as easily as before. It's restricted access because we have to control the number of people in the building at all times. We have to control how many people are in the pool, the fitness center, the arena, the halls, everything. So that does make it the stands. It's gonna make it a bit challenging for us. And again, we're gonna have to do a lot more cleaning and disinfection. So we've had to schedule, basically, you know, for public swim or things like that, you will have to reserve your spot and things, so that we can maintain the capacity level, but then we can schedule a time to go in and do the cleaning and disinfection after each group. It seems to be working well right now. The arenas, it's gonna be a little bit more challenging because it's our own programs right now. So when we start to let other groups in, and you're dealing with a different organization, and we're relying on them to pass along the information and the, you know, the new norm of what will be permitted in the facility. These enhanced measures, we can't incorporate it into our normal day. It is requiring additional staffing hours. You know, the level of staffing that we have at facilities, and I'm talking operational staff, not programming staff. Operational staff would be your arena operators, your facility operators. They're the ones that's actually responsible for cleaning and disinfection in normal times. We've been operating at a bare minimum with those staff. So it's very challenging. We have scheduling issues all the time, just trying to get staff, have one staff person be able to work a shift, let alone two, which is a safety issue that we do have concerns about. So that's why we kind of spread it out, and trying to get, you know, have some of the programming staff help with some of these things. We're also relying on the user groups a bit too, with the screening. Like the Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey has indicated that it will screen its participants at the front door in Blythe, so that's going to cut down on the staff resources that are needed to screen in Blythe and control and monitor the entry and exit to the facility. Wingham's a bit more challenging because we have a multi-purpose facility that has our programs as well as private programs or minor sports programs running and things. So we're working through that right now on how we're gonna deal with that. But Wingham Minor Hockey is going to work with us. I have to say, all the user groups have been really great to deal with, and they have been very cooperative with us, and they understand the situation that we're in. And you know, after reading their documents, the documents that they have to go by, you know, we certainly have an appreciation of what they have to go through too, and what they're having to comply with. So, just going back to, you know, what's going to be or with the new requirements and things. Again, we are having to increase part-time staff hours. We are looking for with the reopening of the arenas, increasing part-time staff hours there of the operators, part-time operators, so that to allow for this additional cleaning and disinfection. We, as indicated in the report, we also indicated that we needed, adult part-time staff. That was mainly due to, screening at the front door, because we find that, if you put a younger person at the front door, older people may challenge them, and, it will be more difficult for them to enforce the rules and capacity levels, so. So that's, kinda how we're dealing with that. We may need to hire, part-time staff to fill in those hours, as needed. But, we're gonna do our best to work within the confines of our existing staff right now. The report indicates that we're projecting these costs will total, approximately $43,556, by the year end. To mitigate those costs, staff are hoping to allocate them to the, funding, the COVID-19 funding that we're supposed to receive from the province. That funding that we're supposed to receive is $135,000 or $138,000. Basically, given the fact that, you know, we don't have a vaccine for COVID-19 yet, we really should consider applying for phase 2 of that funding. I can work with the treasurer in coming up with some estimated costs for, staffing, for next year, so that we can ensure we can cover off, on those, expenses. And I'd also just like to just kind of reiterate too that the costs are based on the rules and the conditions right now. As we've seen time and time again during the course of this pandemic, the rules change. We saw something change from Friday. Friday, it was, based on, a few areas, and then Saturday it went, you know, full spread on, or full province-wide, basically, the rules applied. So things do change very quickly in things, so, in the future, if the rules change, it may have further impact on us financially. If the province decides to maintain the public facilities, put in place legislation to maintain the public facilities at the same level of our standards from here on out, we will need additional staffing resources. And what I'm in turn talking about is if after the pandemic or whatever, we will need additional staffing resources. Because right now we're able to handle it based on minor hockey and figure skating and all of them operating with these modified programs. Modified programs change, or we're running a full program for hockey or figure skating or broom ball or whatever. It changes the way that we operate. It also changes the number of people that come into a building. Because it's nothing to have at the North Huron Westcast facility, 500 people through that building at night. So it just changes things where we're down to just a fraction of the people right now. So that would kind of sum up what I wanted council to know. And if anyone has any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Questions, comments? Councillor Hepper?
Through you, Reeve, again, I think it's hard enough to sustain 2 arenas in a good year, and having 2 arenas in a year like this, I've heard different ones say here, we got costs, or we don't know what's going to be happening. I'm just bringing this out. I feel that we could maybe run 1 arena with all the help we have and do a crack-up job till we know what's going on. And saying that, I've been asking some questions to some of the people in charge of some of the programs, and I could be wrong on this, but I thought the minor broom ball in Blythe, they aren't having anything this year?
So, through your worship, so what has occurred is that the provincial organization, the governing body, has canceled, or has said broom ball is canceled until further notice. and things. And that was for adult and for youth. And then, what has occurred, so with the, just so everyone understands, is that with these provincial governing bodies, that these groups are able to get their insurance through them, and they follow their rules and things, but there's nothing prohibiting them from going on their own and getting insurance and running a program or a rental. So with the youth broom ball, they have not done that, but the adult broom ball have gone ahead with purchasing separate insurance and are looking to rent the facility in Blythe.
So sorry,
No, go
just
ahead.
a couple questions
Go
here.
ahead.
I just find it, the amount of time that's rented out, it's 45 hours about a week, right? In that area, just
43, yeah.
43?
A normal week in Blythe would be 42 and 42 and a half.
And in Wingham would be?
In
Yes.
Wingham, it would be, just a second, let me go back to my notes here. I stand corrected. In Blythe, it's 40, normally a 42 and a half hour week. But there was a group that we were aware of that was folding before COVID-19, so that would have dropped it down to 41 and a half hours. And we have 35 and a half hours committed for Blythe.
35 and a half.
Yeah, and in Wingham, it was a 43-hour week schedule, and we have 38 and a quarter hours committed. And in both cases, that's without going to the adult recreational leagues. That's without the adult recreational leagues, which would make up the difference.
Okay. I just, like in here, there's things that are getting canceled this year, like the Silver Stick tournament, that's 55 hours each of the tournaments, right? So that's 110 hours out. And I just feel that, I'm just not sure how these hours, I just don't know where they're coming in, because it showed on our report back in, what comes in on ice rentals in Blythe is 100,000, and in Wingham it's 150,000 in 2018. I couldn't find the 2019, so that's a third. And to me, I don't know, I guess the numbers, I just like to have some hard numbers of who's like the renting. Like, is there figure skating for sure this year? Figure
In
skating?
Wingham?
In Wingham?
Yes.
Perfect,
Yes.
okay.
But they are taking less hours.
Mhm.
They've cut back their hours just slightly.
Like, I'm just wondering, do you actually think that we couldn't work out of one arena and make use of all this help that we have at our disposal? Like, I mean, it's hard, I think it's hard to hire people that's going to do the job, because it's cold in arena, Trevor and I know that, and people can complain a bit, like, with people that already are working in arenas. I thought if they could come and do a good job, because they sound like hockey's not going to start till the end of October, the WA office said. And they gotta build up to it, they gotta go through the programs, and I just feel we could do a real good job with our municipality at one arena till we get it going, and then see, okay, is broom ball going to come in, or is it not going to come in? I think we'd be able to play better, just my thoughts on that.
So just to follow up on that, Heifer, so Councillor Heifer's asking if staff could look into starting off with one arena and make sure we're using it to capacity, and then go to a second one. Don't forget, we got the Belgrave Arena too, that's volunteers, but it's still there. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, through you, worship, so I can answer some of the questions. So, with the Wingham, with the North Huron complex here in Wingham, the user groups are Wingham Minor Hockey, skating, Wingham, skating, and the Ironman. That makes up the hours.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We'll start with Counselor Heffer, and then we'll go to Counselor Sipe, and then we'll have you, Vicky, answer that question.
Excuse me, through you, Reeve, the skating, I'm just not sure what you mean by that.
The figure skating.
Figure skating?
Mhm.
And
Do you want me
Ironman?
to give you, I'm sorry, through you, your worship, if you
Yes.
don't mind.
Yes.
Would you like me to give you a breakdown on who wants how many hours?
If you wouldn't mind, like, I just.
So,
Yeah.
figure skating is looking for 4.5 hours.
Mhm.
Wingham Minor hockey is looking for 29.75 hours.
Yes.
And the Ironmen are looking for a minimum of 4 hours. Okay.
I'm
So
gonna let,
that, sorry, your
I
worship.
apologize, go ahead.
That's okay. So that makes up the request that we have. Again, that does not include, groups like, the Rockers and, the Original Six and things like that, the adult leagues. Okay, the Good Timers, there's 3 adult teams that run ice up there, which is the Rockers, the Good Timers, and the Original Six. So those are what we call our adult recreational leagues. Okay, so that 38.25 is the request that we have. Okay, and it excludes the adult leagues, which would, bring it up to the, if we were to rent to them, it would bring it on up to the 43 hours. In Blythe, we have, Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey at 18 hours. Okay. We have adult broom ball for 6 hours. Blythe skating for an hour and a half. Huron Heat for 5.5 hours. Ringette is 3 hours. And down there, we do have the old timers that's if they will absolutely come back at an hour and a half.
So I'm gonna pass it over to Deputy Reeve Sipe now.
So in theory, one ice pad is the way to go, in theory. The problem that we run into is all of the users want the times at the same time. So Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey is gonna want times at the same time Wingham Minor Hockey does. And that's from 5, at the earliest, 5, and go till 8:30, at the probably 9:30 at the max.
Yes.
Then you have the rec leagues who go 9:30 and above. All the time, every ice rink in Ontario has problems from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. Every rink in Ontario does. Because people work and they're at school. So you're not going to get the same amount of ice rentals in that time. The problem we have is that the users of the rec sports that we have all want the time the same. So Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey, and Wingham Minor Hockey, would it have been just a nice little love if Blythe and Wingham Minor Hockeys could have loved each other and joined at the time amalgamation? Absolutely. That did not happen. So it doesn't help us in the sense that we're dealing with 2 associations through 2 municipalities. Right? So the concern I have is exactly as Councillor Heffer is that we've got to find 9 hours of ice to be equivalent to we were before, which we're already struggling with cost versus revenue, and now you're throwing in only from September to December another $50,000 plus benefits. Like, that's a big number, and it's a big concern that the municipality has to deal with. We haven't even talked about the matzo ball in the room, which is the fees, because the fees haven't changed. And I'm having a sense from staff that they're gonna be coming back and asking for an increase in fees, charges for these users. Which then the users are gonna be coming to us wanting a reduction because of COVID-19. It's the revolving door of the revolving cycle of where all this is, and this is issues that we have to deal with. Operationally, you know, to be quite fair to staff, operationally, I don't think staff would come to council and suggest us to open 2 arenas if we didn't have to. That's only my point. I think we have to be careful in the sense that council needs to decide what the policy is. If the policy is we're opening 2 arenas and we have 2 arenas, and we're gonna open them because it's safe to do so, then so be it. If we need to design a policy that indicates that if one arena can't get to X amount of hours, then it's closed, then that's the policy that council needs to determine and that needs to understand of how that works. I think we have to be clear is that council needs to give the policy, and operationally staff it's their responsibility to determine how many users, what the costs are, give those recommendations to council. So, you know, I'm not, these are great questions, and I'm not knocking what Councillor Heffer has questions about. That's not my point. My point is that we as council need to understand the new norm. And we need to establish what that new norm from a policy perspective looks like by having two arenas and knowing what those costs are going to be. And if we're going to say that this is going to be the case, then we need to establish what that policy is so staff can ultimately let the users know that this is the policy. If we don't get this number of hours, I'm not suggesting that's the policy. I'm suggesting that council needs to determine what the policy is, but we need to understand what the cost implications are about that policy when we devise it. So, and that's going to be a request from council. So I think we have to determine what that policy is in the new world that we have, because I don't believe that as nice as the provincial government has been on the COVID-19 funding, don't think for 1 second that you think the COVID-19 funding is going to stop come mid next year. The province and the federal government cannot continue to withstand the amount of money that they're forthcoming with no consequence. So, you know, I think our budget's going to be strained, but we need to understand that that's what that looks like. And I think staff is trying to do their best to figure out how to maintain without hiring new staff. But we're in a difficult situation here with operations falling in the same plane with two facilities. So, you know, I think that's the concern I have from an operations perspective, is that operations is doing with the policy that we've given them. And not, when I say we, us as council and councils 50 years from before. We maintain that policy. So I think, to me, that's a discussion that this council needs to have during budget deliberations, in my mind, is what that policy needs to look like in the new world order. And really and that's just my comments.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up on that, on conversations I've been having and we've had here today. It was mentioned that the Brussels folks play in the Blythe Arena, and I'm sure we play in theirs. This again is a community center that a lot of communities use. But we also have a lot of elderly people in our town that are never going to skate in the arena. Why don't we put user fees on? Let's have a look at user fees, because we cannot afford $50,000 worth of cleaning every year from this community. But if we were to go user fees, then the users would understand. They have to understand it's COVID. We're forced into all this money being spent for cleaning, that we're going to have to add it to the price of the ticket. Go ahead, Vic.
To you, Your Worship, are you suggesting a COVID charge, a surcharge? I just wanna clarify what you're saying by user fee.
Well, I think I'm gonna hand that back. I think we should hand that back to the staff to come forward with an idea. We at North Huron cannot afford $50,000 to clean the arenas when maybe 1/3 of our community are using the arenas. What we call it, how we call it, as long as it's justified, I'm sure this council would be happy, and it would be justified, right? I'm not proposing anything that's above and beyond. I'm gonna suggest we hand that back over to the staff and have them come forward.
Your worship, so the ice rental fees for the season have already been set.
Mm-hmm.
They were set at the beginning of the year,
Mm-hmm.
so we would have to look at a surcharge for COVID. That's exactly what we would be looking at. Just in getting back to, though, I want to make a couple comments here, through you, your worship,
Yeah.
to, members of council and Councillor Heffer too, because of his in-depth questions and things like that. There is the potential that we could look at one arena, but that would mean that we are going to have to scope it down as to who would be able to use it. So if, for instance, you wanted to, if this council wishes to say that only minor sports would be able to play this year, then we could look at that. Or if it was only groups from North Huron, then we could look at that. But, that, I haven't received that direction yet. Again, like I said earlier, I was of mind we were going to open one arena. I did not think we were going to have, the requests that we had. And then, as they started, each of the groups had to submit their own plan to, their provincial organizations, and, as to how they would plan, what their plans were to run programs and things, then they started to confirm that. It is possible, but it would also mean that, some of these groups would have to go elsewhere. And the danger in doing that would mean that, potentially we could lose them permanently. So, for instance, the broomball group and things, which broomball is the major user of the Blythe facility. They would, if they found they liked another facility better, they might stay there, and then we might lose that revenue in the future and things, which could bring forward some difficult, discussions and things. But there are groups on here, such as Huron Heat, that is not a North Huron group. And then, Ringette, again, is not a North Huron group. But it brings revenue in, cause we are gonna have some fixed costs to deal with there with the operation of facilities and things, if we open two facilities and things. So, it is a difficult decision to make, and, staff will certainly, go with whatever decision council makes, and we can make it work, but just so, there are some intricacies though you should be aware of. For instance, the, Blythe Brussels minor hockey will not come to Wingham. They will not come to Wingham, they've made that very clear. They will go to Brussels, and Brussels can't accommodate them. The Ironmen will not go, the Ironmen will practice in Blythe, but they will not play in Blythe. They will only play in Wingham. So there's some politics too that are going around. Now, in terms of the other groups and things like that, we did have a discussion initially with, like Wingham Minor Hockey, and said that, they asked us which one, if we were only gonna open up at one facility, which one were we leaning to? And we were leaning toward Blythe, because it was easier for us to deal with the access to the facility and things like that. And they were okay with that. It didn't really matter, they were okay with that, because it seems like everybody seems to understand there is a new norm and things like that. One of the things that I should point out, and I missed it in the, I don't think I mentioned it in the report, and I didn't mention it tonight, for access to facilities. So one of the other conditions that we have to, implement is that, we have to keep the users separate. So the fitness center participants have to be kept separate from the pool participants, who have to be kept separate from the arena participants. So that's, in our mind, why we were looking at Blythe as being, you know, kind of ideal for the arena and things like that. Because they have to exit out separate doors. They can't, we can't have any overlap. So this has been a very challenging exercise to go through, for staff in trying to figure this out and how to make it work. But, again, we will do whatever, council wishes. But I've kind of basically laid it out as to some of the dynamics we're dealing with, you know, the different groups that are involved. And we could go from there, but it's a decision that council needs to make, and we'll go from there.
Before I open it back up to the floor, I wanna also point out that we're doing our budget now, so decisions need to be made if we're gonna make different decisions, because in all fairness to the staff, it's just not a flip of the coin. It's a lot of work to maneuver employees back and forth, around and up and down, and the finances that go along with it as far as maintenance and upkeep on the facilities. Having said that, I'm gonna open it back up to the floor, so we have a couple ideas. Starting with opening with one arena and working to a second if possible. And the other would be COVID-19 surcharge. Either way, we have, I heard close to $50,000 worth of extra money to be spent on the arenas. And we got 50,000 things going on at this township at any given time, so we can't add $50,000 to everything we're gonna do. So I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna start with Anita, and I seen a hand over here for, was it you, Trevor? Okay, let's go with Anita first.
This 50,000 is extra cost. I thought we could take it from the COVID grant we are getting, so it wouldn't be a big problem this year. But I think we have to look at the coming year, how we're gonna handle this if there's no COVID vaccine coming. So I don't have any problems with opening up 2 arenas this year and have everybody do their stuff, because everybody's been locked up for so long. Everybody needs to go out, kids need to do something. I think it's very important to open up both, get the money from the COVID grant, and then at budget time or soon look at options for next year.
Thank you, Councillor Van Hitterman. Just wanna ask, is that guaranteed money, or we're asking for that money, or we have that money?
Go ahead.
Okay, through your worship, that is money that has been committed to us by the province.
Okay.
I did speak with the Director of Finance this afternoon, and other than, some of the expenses we've incurred in terms of additional, hand sanitizer, cleaning and disinfection, the only charge at this, only other charge at this moment that would apply in that case would be, or could be, these additional staffing costs. She did indicate that the additional staffing costs that are related to the daycare center, that's just supposedly being covered under a different funding model.
Did you wanna add to that, Dwayne?
No, I have nothing further to add. We are facing a shortfall with our daycare, but the province has indicated that they are going to help us cover that shortfall. They haven't made a commitment in terms of how much, whether it's going to be all or some. We're still waiting on the details on that, but there's full expectation that we're going to receive some financial assistance for the daycare. That then, we received $138,500 in the first phase for COVID related expenses. So we're not counting the daycare against that $138,500 at this point. So we're anticipating that, and out of that $138,500, what we don't use in 2020 gets carried over into 2021. And then there is, as Vicky has indicated, there is the option for municipalities who are facing continued or additional COVID-related expenses can apply for funding under phase 2. but there's no guarantee that you'll get the phase 2 funding. You do have the phase 1 funding, the 138.5. You apply for a phase 2, and it will depend whether or not you meet the funding criteria as far as whether or not you'll receive everything you apply for. And again, I don't know, because as of late, it seems in terms of from a provincial perspective, you get all or nothing. You don't get a partial. That seems to be the approach with the province lately. So in terms of if you apply for 50,000 under phase 2, you might get 50,000 or you might get nothing. It seems that the province as of late doesn't, you apply for 50, you get 25. It seems you get all or nothing. That seems to be what I'm sensing or observing at what's happening at the provincial level. But again, you can't, whether you'll get anything under phase 2 or not, you don't know.
Deputy Reese?
Yeah, through you, I think, I'm in favor of Councillor Van Heersum. My suggestion with policy review was throughout the budget term as well as in the next spring. When we look at fees and bylaw, when we look at the fee structure and the fee bylaws, I think we have to look at this operation, in every operation, that everything is on the table as to no status quo can be maintained. We have to look at the complete operation of the facilities, of all facilities, and understand where our cost implications are and what policies we may need to adjust in order to support the direction of those operations. I think ultimately, Vicky, Director of Recreation, has made an excellent point about the politics involved in this. There's more to play than just us. Those operations, those user groups have their own idiosyncrasies and own belief system that they believe that they are entitled to something. Whether they are or not, that's up for debate. But we need to look at that stuff as an organization and say that staff need to be understood that from us, everything is on the table for review. And if you come to us with a realization or a plan that is different than the status quo, meaning 2 arenas for the whole year, or 1 arena for the first half and 1 arena for the last half, and whatever that looks like, I think everything's got to be looked at now in COVID. We don't have a choice. Municipalities are going to be strained to the nth degree, and like I said, we cannot expect the province to continue to bail out municipalities, lower tier municipalities, because there's just not going to be the money there to do that. So in my mind, Reeve, operationally, staff need to be given some type of direction from council that, this council is proactive. We would love to see change if we need to see change. If we don't need to see change, we're not here to rock a boat. But I honestly think this council has shown in the past year and a little bit that we're willing to accept change. We're willing to accept the idiosyncrasies of where we've led, and we're not willing to stay at status quo. I'm not going to speak for entire council, but that's what I'm interpreting, and that's how most of our decisions have come through. It answers the questions of a lot of questions that these councillors are asking. Councillor Heffer's questions are a prime example. Like, those questions necessarily are questions about change. How do we maintain and how do we look at our infrastructure and our facilities and our programs in a different light? So do I think these are bad questions, bad decisions to be having? No. I think budget time ultimately is the time to be having those discussions ultimately. But, with the user groups being here and our costs and our revenue streams being locked for this particular year, it's really not really a time in my mind to change and say, users, no, we don't want you, because, but I think if there's any user group that's watching this here tonight, they have to understand it's not going to look the same potentially in a year from now than it did yesterday. So that's my comment. I completely agree with Councillor Van Heersum. I think we maintain what we have based on the discussions that the Director of Recreation has had. She's been going on a plan based on the discussions of this council about opening stuff on. Most of our costs are gonna be mitigated for 2020. I think we continue the path, but I think we definitely reiterate the fact that nothing's out of the question at this point.
Anyone else? Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, we've, from council, I agree with you, Anita. I think it's good to have, we need to have both arenas going. It seems like the hours were really close to what's normal. And there's still a chance of getting the adults in Wingham fired up. I'm not sure what it takes, but you might have to do some selling. I think there's a huge sense to get back to it's best to get to some sense of normalcy. It's so healthy for our public. Do what we can do in that department. A user fee makes sense, because there's a legitimate reason. I don't know if you can surprise them with it at this date, because they already know what their costs are gonna be, but, you know, it's what we decide. It changes hard. I'd hate for us to limit the user groups that would come in and bring it down to one arena. The politics, great word. And we will lose people, lose users next time, because they'll be upset, to say the least. And we don't want to do that, because that will affect us when things are back to normal. And we need to get both arenas fired up, so we need to keep as many groups as we can and try and sell more space for hours if we can.
Anyone else? Councillor Falconer?
Yes, thank you, Reed. Sitting here listening to the debate back and forth on what it costs and what does it bring in and who's got more hours and such. Those are two sides of two different arguments as far as what, if you're gonna make a decision. I'm still waiting patiently for the recreation master plan that we asked for the first year. If it's done, I'd like to see it, because we need that information. Because if we're making decisions now on individual pieces of our recreation, on what it costs or what does it bring in, I'm sure there's a whole slew of other places that we could be saving money, if that's the way we wanna pick it apart, or look at the master plan. I haven't seen the master plan yet. I think for all of us to get on that same page, we need to see that document. But good luck to everyone if you want to choose for your municipality who gets the arena and who doesn't. Because one way or the other, I know some of us aren't going to be here in the next election, because that would be a deal breaker right there. So I'm not downplaying the cost versus what it uses, whether we could use two arenas, whether we could use one for municipality our size. No, we really probably don't need the cost to our taxpayers for both arenas, but unfortunately there's not one in the middle. Maybe we can dig a pool there and put a fitness center in, and then we'd be all done. But I need to see that master plan. It's done by a third party. It gives us the information from sitting outside looking in. But as far as debating now about whose arena you use and whose you don't, if there's a stipulation between which one, I say we close both, or don't open both. So rather than pick one side or the other, then I think the people of our wards would start speaking up.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from council then, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, Turk, we want to, steady as she goes, we've got the finances for this year. We'd like to see the master rec plan as soon as possible, find out who's doing it and get it in there. I just want to follow one more thing, Vicki. And at the same time, we don't know, and our staff has been very clear, we don't know if we're going to get the funding for next year, so we're gonna look at user fees, so master plan, steady as she goes, cause the funding's there. We're into budget talks now, so let's get the user fees, start to work on the user fees if we need them, and if we get, heaven falls, another $100,000 down for us, we won't worry about it. Go ahead, Vicki.
Through you, your worship, so I just wanted to comment on the master plan. The master plan was identified in the report that came to council in April as being one of those projects that could be postponed until after COVID. That, again, was when we were thinking COVID was going to be a month or so. So we've come to a realization now that it's not a month or so, and I've been discussing with the CAO about moving forward with that, and the plan is to release that RFP in October and to get a consultant hired and things.
I was under, my own personal thought, I thought that it was already done.
I did too, honestly, so that's fine.
So I don't know where that miscommunication come. I thought that was a done deal and we were just waiting for the,
Through your worship, so, the rec master plan was incorporated in the budget, that was approved by council, but, what, the director of recreation is referring to, during the COVID pandemic, one of the reports we brought forward to council, it was a report of all the things, the list of projects that were incorporated in the budget that would be pursued during the pandemic, and the ones that would have to, basically at the time what we called post-COVID. There was an Excel chart that included all those budgeted projects, and as the director of recreation has indicated, that the rec master plan was one of those that it was listed as post-COVID.
I thought I was told that it was coming forward. Okay, my mistake.
So, is everyone okay with the, we have this motion to pass?
Yeah, so for council's benefit, due to the length of this discussion, I can read the motion again.
We'd love you to.
So the motion on the floor right now is that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated September 21st, 2020 regarding the staffing requirements for the reopening of recreational facilities for informational purposes, and further that council authorizes staff to apply to the province of Ontario for phase 2 of the COVID-19 funding.
Do I have a mover?
You already have a
Oh,
vote.
I already have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Go ahead, Paul.
May I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Yes. We'll have a recorded vote.
So I'll now call the recorded vote. So Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
No.
Councillor Van Henderson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that recorded vote carries 6-1 with the no being Councillor Heffer.
Thank you. Before we move on to 7.4 Public Works, do we need a vote to start looking into user fees as well as bringing forward the master plan, or is that
So
just?
through your worship,
Yes.
the fees and charges is annual process that we undertake every year. So council, for council's benefit, staff are already starting that process. We've definitely received the direction of what council's looking for when we undertake that, so we'll incorporate that feedback into the process. And as for the rec master plan, as the Director of Recreation has indicated, that RFP is being released very soon.
Thank you kindly. Okay. Public Works and Facilities. 7.4.1. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated September 21st, 2020 regarding requirements for the Blythe Water Wastewater Treatment Plant for information. And further, the council authorizes $50,000 to be used for the sole sourcing engineering services from BM Ross under the single source provisions of the North Huron procurement policy. And further, that the $50,000 from the total capital allotment be earmarked for engineering design work. And further, that the balance of the 2020 funds allocate to the project to be put into reserve for and reallocated towards the project as part of the 2021 budget process. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to make the necessary adjustments for the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Faulkner moving. I have Councillor McBurney seconding. Can we have the Director McCarthy speak to this? Are you ready?
Currently, the Blythe West wastewater treatment plant uses chlorine to disinfect the effluent, and then discharges it to the environment. Back in 2015, any facility that discharged greater than 5,000 meters cubed a day of effluent that was treated with chlorine had to have their system meet compliance with this Canadian Environmental Protection Act. We were given until January 1st, 2021. That's coming up fairly soon, and we have not moved forward with that project. In order to show compliance to the federal agencies, I'm recommending that we move forward with BM Ross to get some of the design work completed, as there's two different methods of removing chlorine from the Blythe wastewater treatment plant. And in order for them to look to see which is the best route to go and which is the most cost effective, BM Ross has done quite a bit of work at our wastewater treatment facilities as well as in our underground infrastructure through the service master plan. I think I got the right name for that. So that's why I am recommending that we move forward with them. Estimated amount for the project would have been $300,000 to $350,000 depending on which route we ended up going with. So the current budget for this project was $400,000. Therefore, I am asking council to sole source the engineering for to BM Ross. Is there any questions?
Council questions? I'm gonna start with Councillor Van Hitterman.
These costs, are they user pay, or is this coming from another source? Is this coming from the water sewage account, or is this?
Yeah, it would be coming through the sanitary account.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did I see a hand over here?
Yeah, somewhere, I'm sorry I missed it here, but it said something about it may be that you have to change the building, some of the buildings there, to hold the thing if something doesn't work, or is that gonna be in the latter part of the scheme of things?
Through your lead to Councillor Pepper, depending on what the equipment would end up being, if we're able to fit it within the buildings that we have in Blythe, it should be, it'll be a certain amount of money. If it turns out that we're not able to accommodate the infrastructure in the building and we have to do something outside of the building, it might trigger a different mechanism or means of treating the effluent, and then might change the costs.
Will it be dramatic, or will it be low-key cost?
I'm unsure on
Oh,
that.
okay.
Like it could be towards the lower end, or it could be a little bit more.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.4.2, County Road 4 and 25 intersection, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated September 21st, 2020 regarding discussions of the County Road 4 and 25 intersection for information. And further, the council agreed to contribute $10,000 towards a joint study that supports safe vehicle and pedestrian traffic at the intersection of County Road 4 and 25. And further, that the council authorizes $10,000 to be funded from the Public Works Reserve. And further, that council directs the Director of Finances to make the necessary adjustments to the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Anita. Do I have a seconder? I have Councillor Palmer. Director McCarthy, would you like to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you, Julie. So we had a meeting with county staff as well as members of Central Huron regarding the intersection of 25 and County Road 4. There was a bit of discussion regarding that intersection and the issues that are occurring there right now. The county did inform us that they do want to proceed with further studies to see what can be completed at that intersection, and that whether they complete a roundabout or a four-way stop, it would still be around $1.5 to $2 million due to the amount of earthworks that needs to be done to make the grading function properly in that intersection. So although the accidents don't warrant the roundabout or the four-way stop, the amount of traffic flow that is going through there now does. So the county wanted both municipalities to move forward to assist in completing the study, and I'm recommending that we do move forward with it, as it would be very beneficial to have a study in place to show what we do need to do in order to make that intersection safer for both vehicle traffic and for pedestrians. Any questions?
Deputy Site.
I just have a comment. It's amazing. It's amazing in the sense that the county is now, whether they're aware of it or not, the aware of the traffic that has been going through County Road 4 and 25, and their argument of the accidents aren't what's causing the roundabout, it's the amount of traffic. It begs the question to me is, they're hearing about the accidents, not about the traffic. So that argument that it's not the traffic accidents that's caused more of the discussion seems ironic to me. But you know, in my mind, this has been a difficult discussion at this, because it is a county road. It's two county roads that intersect. The municipality really has no skin in the game when it comes to what gets done at that at that intersection, because they are a county road. So in my mind, you know, this $10,000 puts us in the game, because now the county says we've done this. Here's our engagement of this deal, of this discussion. Now we honestly truly believe that something is going to happen at that intersection, and hopefully by all accounts it doesn't happen at that intersection after a death. By all accounts, I hope it never does. But at the end of the day, in my mind, us putting this money in gives us a bigger talk at the table. You know, when we come and say to the county, we've put $10,000, or Central Huron says we've put $10,000 into this thing, and we're not seeing any movement, there's gonna be some counselors at the county table that are gonna be a little more apt to say, as opposed to nothing. So, you know, I think ultimately, in my mind, it's ironic, and I'm not surprised that this has gotten the news that it has. Former Councillor Knott was a big proponent. Councillor Vodden was a big proponent of that intersection. The Blythe Ward representatives now in the East Monash Ward, and us, Councillor Heffer and Reeve Bailey, we've been a very big proponent of, we have to do something, And we just cannot continue to say it's not because of, it's not the intersection's fault. It's something else. So arguably, my mind is this is going to tell us, this study, right or wrong, what's going on at that intersection. And at least then it can get on to county's plate and say, there is a problem at that intersection. Regardless of what you think, it's not just the traffic. It is physically something wrong with that intersection, whether it be height, whatever, that let's deal with it and let's get it done. So I think, in my mind, us putting this money in is the best thing we could do in order to continue the discussions, and at least then county knows we've got some skin in the game in this deal anymore.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, and then Councillor McBurney.
Yeah, by doing this, we definitely are meaning business. And Deputy Reeve is absolutely right about skin in the game. And for Central Huron too, that's great. It's always people are the problem. It's not so much the intersection. It's people, shooting through, not seeing it, this and that, speeding usually. So I'm totally in favor of lights, a roundabout, and trying to, another issue this intersection would help with is the pedestrian crossing, because there definitely is. And the best way, in my mind, from my experience, is lights. A roundabout and put pedestrian crossing in the middle. How do you stop people going in a circle already where they can, only see a certain segment of the car ahead? It would be silly, so I hope to heavens they don't go roundabout. But lights makes a big difference. It controls people.
Thank you. Mr. McBurney.
Through you, Reeve Bailey, I believe, I agree with what I've been hearing, but what I believe too, you gotta look after that road prior to that intersection. Because we're dealing with the inattentive drivers, maybe a more aggressive rumble strip, maybe more markings and painting to highlight that intersection. You can see the lights far enough back. They're motion activated at 200 meters. It's like Councillor Palmer says, it's the drivers. Speed and inattentiveness. Then they got a pretty brewery to look at when they're driving by, not paying attention.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Hepper.
Yes, you, Reeve. I can see, because some of these police reports, I'm sure if we read them, it's going to be the person not paying attention driving. I'm guilty of that too, for sure. But something I really appreciate.
Tell us about it.
Sorry, sorry, Councillor Effort.
It's all right. I feel that, I come through it from radars all the time. I feel that those rumble strips aren't enough to wake you up. I feel they should be a lot more coarser, like at the one north of town there. You hear them, and it does something to you. You see the lights, but you go and you're looking at the light, you don't even feel the rumble strips. That's what I feel on it. So just coarse them out a bit more too, while we're waiting for these things to go on. But I'm with putting money towards that. Thank you.
It's your turn, Jamie.
Through you, Reeve Bailey. One of the other reasons why the county is requesting that the townships contribute is that we will be the ones that are going to install and also maintain the sidewalks if they do go in towards that intersection. So that's another thing that the county has made clear, that if we do this study together, then we'll be able to see where the best place to place sidewalks could potentially be, and then therefore we're not installing something and then taking it back out or having an issue in the future. So that's another big reason why they did ask the lower tiers to assist in this study. And I think it's great that we're all going to be working together on this, because it is something that Central Huron, North Huron, and the county will need to deal with in the future.
Go
Yeah, Reed Bailey, I just think as the indications or as these studies come about, I think it would be important that the municipality continue to keep the BIA involved. The BIA has been a big proponent in Blythe with regards to this particular intersection, especially with sidewalks and their sidewalk plan. So, they put a sidewalk plan to council that we, in essence, adopted with hope that we would work with them to get that sidewalk plan in place. So understanding this study, if it's gonna defact from that report that they presented to council, then, that's a discussion that, the BIAs and staff should have and bring back another report to council if something's gonna change as to where a sidewalk's gonna go, or I'm sure we're going to be involved in all that stuff, but I think the BIAs are an important part of this because they're one of the ones that were bringing that through Councillor Faulkner here to this table as well as the chair. So I think it would be important that we at least keep them, or staff and council keep them in the loop as it relates to these studies when they come in.
So I'll pick on this a little bit now. So this has been a bit of a long haul for me and my staff, and I appreciate everything you've done. The BIA head, Dave Sparling, has been part of it from day one. Steve Sparling from the Cowboy Bell Brewery, I want to thank him for the wonderful letter that I got to send on to county about the need of this. And I appreciate the time that Tim Hortons and Scrimmager's little gas station there gave me. And I appreciate the Wingham Advanced Times coming all the way to Blythe to take pictures and have a conversation about this intersection with David and I one time last summer. We've been working on this for a while. The reason you have 3 involved is because the sidewalks are the responsibility and the cost to the townships. So on one side you have Central Huron, on one side you have North Huron. We will be paying for the sidewalks or the crosswalks or anything like that that comes in. The actual road itself will be the cost of the county. At the last county meeting, this was passed. So it is passed, it's going through. It will be, my understanding is we're gonna do all the paperwork first of all, and in the last year of our sitting council, it will be put in place. Having said that, there's always roadblocks. One of the things that really got me going on this is when I was trying to go, and still I am trying to get, because I will get it, just the way I'm built. I want the county building in the middle of Blythe. I have a letter from a director from the county saying Highway 25 is too dangerous. For me, that was the end of the conversation. I have that in writing. We're moving forward with this. The county's moving forward with this. It's been a journey. There's still a long ways to go. With COVID and everything, we don't know how things are gonna turn out. But I'll repeat what I said at county. I don't care if you put a roundabout in. I don't care if you put lights in. I don't care if you get me a crossing guard. I don't want another person to die or get mangled. Thank you. So, without any further ado, let's call. Everyone in favor? Carries. Thank you. 7.4.3, sidewalk at the County Road of 4 and 86 intersection. Again, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated September 21st, 2020 regarding a potential crosswalk and sidewalks at the County Road 4 and 86 intersection for information. And further, that the council authorize staff to work with the County of Huron to assist the potential for a crosswalk and sidewalk extension to link pedestrian traffic to commercial business at the County Road 4 and 86 intersection. It's the same thing, isn't it?
No, one's in Blythe, one's in Wingham.
So that's the.
Oh, this is this one out here, sorry. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Palmer, seconder is Councillor Heffer. Questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Faulkner.
Well, thank you, Reeve. Just curious, just by the wording of it here, if someone with more of an idea of what the intention is, so the intersection of 4 and 25 for a crosswalk, are they meaning closer back this way or right at the corner of the lights?
Should Jamie speak to it?
Oh, sorry, Jamie, would you like to give us some information
Would you
first?
expect everybody to walk up to the corner and then come back?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll let Jamie explain this one too, because I wasn't gonna be able to answer that, and it's 486, not 425. I got mixed up on that too.
Oh, well, yeah, it says 425, I'm sorry.
Through to Councillor Faulkner. Yeah, the county, approached me and inquired if, they were to do a study, would the township ever, move forward with extending sidewalks potentially to either that intersection, or move it somewhere else. So when they complete this study, they'll be able to say whether or not a crosswalk is feasible, and if it is, would the township then be inclined to move forward to extending the sidewalks if it is. So this report is going through, possibly just putting out, I guess, feelers to council to say if we were able to move forward, if they move forward with the study, and they're only gonna move forward with the study if the Council of North Huron is inclined to at some point install sidewalks towards a crosswalk, would that be the case? I guess that's.
So we have sidewalks on the west side, we don't have sidewalks on the east side.
I was just curious too, it's good to rebuttal on that, just through human nature. You're at McDonald's and one of your kids wants a Tim Hortons Timbit. I can't see them running up to the highway corner and over to come back down. They just run across the road there, where the commercial is.
Yeah, be a better place for the crosswalk anyway, closer to town. Go ahead, Charlie.
So, I don't know if it was this council, but I know when the site plan was developed for that 486 McDonald, like that junction, there was lots of discussion about how individuals are going to go across, in essence, 3 levels of traffic. Because you've got the turning lane to come into Value Mart, you've got the right lane to go down straight, and you've got the other oncoming traffic coming into town. So you've got three lanes of traffic there, and the road, the entrance to go into the new development is off cycle to where the entrance to Value Mart is, as well as the entrance to Tim Hortons is. So there's lots of discussion about what that looks like, and again, if the county, in my mind, is wanting to do a study that tells me whether I should put a crosswalk in, I'm in. Because then I've got something that can document to the ratepayers of Wingham, or North Huron, that says, this is for public safety. I'm doing this for a purpose. I'm not just designing something out of the fruition of my heart. I've got a study that tells me it. And ultimately, if we put a crosswalk anywhere in that strip, is it a bad thing? It's only going to lower the speed of traffic that comes into town, in my mind. But I don't have the study to back that up. So if the county is willing to investigate, no different than the plan in 4 and 25 in Blythe, why would we not accept the same plan at 486 in Wingham to understand? Because let's be clear, I'm not even sure how we're going to get, even if the plan said we were going to get sidewalks, how are we going to devise sidewalks on the east side? Because it's all road. There's not because there's the road and there's the fence that goes down to the hill. So I don't know even where a sidewalk would even fit unless you move the road or make the road smaller. So, that's all discussion for another day. But I mean, if a study warrants a crosswalk, it would be, I think, foolish of us as a municipality to not at least exercise the discussion that we've got a traffic study that says one warrants it, and based on the traffic that I've seen, it probably warrants it.
If I could just follow up, and then I'll give it over to Paul. I just want to follow up on that. Jamie, just so I'm understanding, when we say that corner, we could be talking about 500 yards in, and I'll tell you why. Because the traffic is the high school kids. It's not the corner. People aren't going in the corner. It's how you get the kids across, back and forth across that highway. And if I have the luxury of watching it because I'm around town all the time in my line of business. So I just keep that in the back of your mind, that it's, I think you're gonna see the traffic is from the high school, so therefore probably in town a little more would be better than out of town. I'm gonna go to Councillor Hepper first, and I'm gonna let you answer that, cause he had his hand up, okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. I remember we had something in our budget for 16,000, I think, for sidewalks here that our previous director had for going out to McDonald's, but maybe I interpreted it wrong. Like I thought it was in the.
Yeah, you kinda jotted a bit of a memory. I'm gonna let Jamie speak to it at this point, because she wanted to speak, and then did you have, yeah?
Yes, through your read. The crossing to that, I would, like, looking at the road, it would be over, I don't know the name of the road, I think it's David, by Godfather's Pizza, where you could go down a little bit of the sidewalk on the Tim Hortons side.
Scott Street, yeah.
Scott Street, and then cross there and then come down, so if there's just a little bit of a sidewalk from that street to the McDonald's driveway, that could be a look that they could move forward with as well. They would
Yeah.
let us know.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, we've, yeah, when I first read this, Jamie, I was thinking, oh, good, right at the lights, because it might be needed on the other side when Hutton Heights get going, then that's gonna be another conversation. But anyways, coming out of McDonald's, where the gas station entrance is, if it's busy, you take your life in your hands, and I've decided I'm never doing that again, because there's too many. Trevor, you said 3 ways, there's actually, you're looking at 4, because there's traffic on all lanes coming at you, and you've gotta jump at some point, and this is when it's busy. And I'm going over to Amberley and coming around through the lights now, because and I'm an old guy, I've been driving a long time, and it bothered me. So I told my wife, don't ever go that way, it's not worth it. So having crosswalks, well, a study will determine it, of course, but having a regular flashing light crosswalk somewhere past that will really make it interesting.
You had a good point. Thank you very much, Chris. Deputy Reeve.
So the one thing I think we have to understand, though, there would have been, for the site plan arrangement, there would have been a traffic study done for that, where they put the entrance and all that. Okay, so that would have been determined during a traffic study for the site to plan. So this traffic study is more of where the crosswalk needs to be, not where traffic's gonna go. Traffic was determined on that based on the site plan. That's where the entrance to come off of in Tim Hortons and that gas bar, why it was put there, as opposed to whether we agree with the study or the engineer that designed it. There's some times I would argue I don't agree with half the times that what an engineer tells me, but that's why they get paid they do, and that's why I don't get paid what they do. So one of the things that we have to understand is for a site plan arrangement in that development, there would have been a traffic study required. So they had the traffic study for the actual traffic. What I'm hearing is this is a pedestrian study to understand whether they need a crosswalk at all, and then they'll determine based on that study where is the most appropriate place to put it. 86 and 4 or 1,000 yards into town of Wingham, who knows? I think we have to be, I understand that you're absolutely correct. And the conversation about Hutton Heights is another conversation, because again, that's on its own discussion, and there's lots of people from that area that already walk down the highway as it is. So, you take your choices on where you're gonna walk. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, this study is gonna help us determine not only do we need one, but where. And that's where I think it's the most important part, as opposed to us guessing.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone. I have movers, so I'm gonna call the motion. All in favor? Carries. There's no fire department report, there's no building report, child care department. Notice of retirement, Valerie Watson, manager of the child care services. That the council of township of North Huron hereby accepts with regrets the retirement of Valerie Watson, manager of child care services, effective December 11th, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Paul, and seconder is Trevor. What if we don't? Like, what if we didn't?
She keeps working.
Just change that to
Somehow-
2023 or
Yeah.
something before.
I somehow doubt it.
Oh yeah, I call the motion. Carries. If Val was watching, she's upset with me right now. 7.8.1 CEO 2020 Manager of Child Care Vacancy and Restructuring Proposal. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the CEO dated September 21st, 2020 regarding the Manager of Child Care Services Vacancy and Restructuring Proposal. And further, that the council approves the attached organizational charts for the municipality of the Department of Recreation and Community Services, Child Care Services, and the municipality effective December 14th, 2020. And further, that the council approves the attached job description for the Manager of Child Care Services, the Director of Recreation and Community Services, and the CAO effective December 4th, 2020. And further, that council authorizes staff to proceed with the municipal-led recruitment process for the Manager of Child Care Services. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Palmer and I have Mr. McBurney seconding. I'm gonna open it up to questions, comments, concerns. Oh, first of all, I guess you're right, I better let Dwayne speak.
Sorry, Reeve.
It's okay. That's what you're there for, buddy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. So, as council's aware, Valerie has tendered her retirement effective December the 11th. And retirements and resignations basically provide an opportunity for council to evaluate the need for a position, the duties and responsibilities of the position, as well as the organizational structure. And so what is being proposed is changing the reporting structure for that particular position. And just to give council a bit of background, so the Manager of Child Care Services reported previously to the Director of Corporate Services and the clerk. And the Director of Corporate Services clerk retired in 2017. And as a result of restructuring, that position was eliminated. And as a result of the elimination of that position, the Manager of Child Care Services by default reported to the CAO. As council is aware, there's a number of direct reports to the CAO position. And we're currently working on a human resource policy review, and very shortly council will receive a report regarding our service delivery review, which is nearing completion. And it's been suggested and noted that there are a number of positions that do report to the position, and that for municipality of our size, you generally will see 5 to 6 individuals report, and right now we're sitting around 8. So building on that, the question then became in terms of, should the Manager of Child Care Services position, should it be in fact a director level position? So we reached out to the pay equity consultant to ask her to do a job comparison between the Director of Community and Recreational Services and the Manager of Child Care Services. And I won't go into the detail, but in your report you'll see that the pay equity consultant is advising or indicating that the Manager of Child Care Service position is properly banded, does not align with or have parity with the Director of Recreation and Community Services, and as such is recommending that it remain a Manager of Child Care Services position. The Manager of Child Care Services position has oversight of a defined portfolio with one client group. The position is heavily legislated, regulated in terms of what can be provided and how, where, and what credentials are mandatory in staff. The position also involves a lot of focus on the day-to-day operational planning and coordinating. The manager spends time dealing with issues on a daily basis that are operational and customer service oriented. And previously, as noted, the manager position reported to director and not to the CAO. At the October 21st, 2019 meeting, council had discussion regarding a restructuring proposal for the children's services. And at that time, we had knowledge of the pending retirement of the managed child care services. And as council is aware, our child care services department has grown substantially over the years. And so as a result of that, we did do some restructuring, creating 2 supervisor positions. And those 2 supervisor positions are based on the continued existence of our manager of child care. So on that basis, then it's recommended that we do not eliminate and we proceed with keeping the manager of child care services position. We don't know in terms of with COVID, in terms of our ability to recruit for the position. We believe we will be successful in terms of moving forward with that position as it currently exists. I mean, if council wish, we can look at different ways of fulfilling that manager of child care services position in terms of we could look at a sharing arrangement, for example, with another municipality, and you could also contract out. Neither of those from staff's perspective are favorable. Essentially, we would lose insight in terms of how the daycare center operates, whereas by having it as an employee of the organization, we'll have a more active involvement in it. So it's recommended that we proceed with keeping the position as is, and it's also recommended that we proceed with filling it as it currently exists in terms of on a full-time basis. That said, if council wishes, staff can certainly undertake and do an investigation in terms of other ways to provide that service. So building on that, the manager child care services position, as I've indicated, currently reports to the CAO. And the proposal, in light of the restructuring that we did within the Department of Recreation and Community Services, and you'll note community services, child care services is a community service. So the proposal is that the manager child care services would report to the Director of Recreation and Community Services. I have had discussions with Vicki regarding this. She has expressed that she has little knowledge of child care services, but with the support of the manager, on the basis that the position is filled, and the 2 supervisors, and with myself in terms of my involvement thus far, she's willing to incorporate child care services into her portfolio. The pay equity consultant, I asked whether or not that would result in any impact on the banding of the Director of Recreation and Community Services position, and the response was there would be no impact. In terms of if the restructuring proposal was approved, the manager of child care services would no longer continue to be a senior management level position, and on that basis it does change the hiring practice. So when we're hiring for senior management positions, it historically has been myself, 2 members of council, and then an external expert in the field. On the basis that it would no longer be a senior management level position, the interview panel or the hiring committee proposed would be myself, the Director of Recreation and Community Services, and an external expert. So generally speaking, that's someone from another municipality who has a background and experience in the child care field. So building on that, if this restructuring proposal was approved, as was indicated in the motion, the job descriptions for the manager of child care services, the Director of Recreation and Community Services, and the CAO would change, and they are attached as change for council's review and approval. As well, the organizational chart for the municipality would change in terms of the manager of child care would report to the Department of Recreation and Community Services, and the childcare services organizational chart would change to show that it's reporting out to the Director of Recreation and Community Services. So all those documents are attached there for council's review and approval. Any questions?
Everybody got quiet all of a sudden. Not seeing any questions. I will call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Correspondence. Request to proclaim October 22nd, 2020 a child care worker and early childhood educator appreciation day. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby proclaim Thursday, October 22nd, 2020 as Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day and agrees to participate.
So move, Reeve.
I've got Trevor Sipe and I've got Kevin Faulkner seconding. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, go ahead, Kevin.
Just a comment or concern, just to, through your ear, to the request coming through from the union representing the workers. There are just as many non-union caregivers and home caregivers. I fully support the endorsement of having the Child Care Educator Appreciation Day, but just having it tagged on to only one facet of the whole total organization, and their request to supply posters and distribute buttons and organize events and concerts for the day, promoting one facet of just the union side of the equation of I find that as council not having to take sides with one part of the labor force versus the other, I just have a little remorse in supporting just one facet. That's all. Just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. We're down to council reports. We're gonna start with the Reeves report. Got a few things on the agenda tonight. First thing we're gonna start with is on your desk you would have found finances of where the money is spent. This was put together by Donna, and I want to thank her very much. This stems from a conversation where we've spoken about, well, what do we really get for our dollars? So when we're doing budgets and when we're talking to the public, the one thing we all see and appreciate is capital expenditures. We all see that. It's the non-capital expenditures that we don't see. So in this little list that she's given us, you can see whether it's East Wawanach, Blythe, or Wingham, in North Huron, where your money is spent. Somebody has to pay for Dwayne, somebody has to pay for... You getting paid yet? Anyway, so your money is spent in very many different places, as well as just the capital expenditure. So this is just for all of you guys, so you can see where it is. So if somebody says to you, I didn't get my road paved this week, what do I get for my taxes? You can actually say, well, there's childcare, there's arenas, and this is the amount we pay towards it. Any questions on this report, I'm going to send you directly to Donna. She is our budget officer, and she can handle that. I just wanted to talk about at county, we're moving forward with the roundabout and diet, but I guess I don't have to now. The Blythe Crosswalk, of course, as you know, is going ahead too. I believe we've seen information on that today, so it should be done, I believe, this year. I believe it's this year still. We're going to have the crosswalk done on the main street in Blythe, so it will be done. At county, we authorized about $500,000 for the needy, for the people that don't have homes. And this is an emergency setting where we know we have several people that are out in the cold, whether for whatever reason. It's for us that are lucky enough not to know us just as well. But we are the people that are lucky, and we must help our fellow man. So We've spent $500,000 and it'll be passed to the council. It was okayed by council again this week or last week whenever I had county. And it will go through at the next one on a vote. This is for people that literally are out in the cold on a minute's notice. And the way we've set it up is there will be a big building that can hold about 19 to 20 people in Goderich. There will be transportation from the other small communities around Huron County that can get the people to the shelter. This is not new. This has been going on forever. But the step we're taking today is a step for the people that are having a very difficult time getting out of the cold. They can't stay there all day. I believe it's 7 at night till 12, and then they have to be out for the rest of the day. We are also, for that kind of money, we're giving them counseling, because the whole idea is switching from just getting them in out of the cold, that's all there is to it, to say, you know something, if we talk to these folks, if we help these folks out a bit, then maybe we can help them get up on a leg up and start life over again. So having said that, it is part and parcel of the 5 and then 10-year commitment by Huron County, but it was brought to our attention, I think last summer sometime, that people literally were freezing in the cold. And so the county has decided to take care of it, and I'm very proud of my county for doing that. That's about it for that one. I'd also like to talk about Valerie Watson for a minute. Valerie is a long-term employee. As a matter of fact, she's been around so long. When I was a single parent, she took my 2 children and took care of them at daycare. Now, you know that's a long time ago. She's been marvelous for us. She's done a wonderful job. Again, I'm sure that there are thousands of people that have the same story I do, that I would not have had. Things would have changed different for me if there wasn't a daycare there for me to help me with my children at that time in my life. And they were there till they went to public school. Actually, I think my son was one of the only ones that ever escaped from the daycare. Well, that's another story. So, but she's a wonderful person. We've really enjoyed working with her, and we hope she has I know she will have a great retirement, because she's a wonderful person. Last thing I want to touch on is these. We all received an email the Tuesday after Monday's last council meeting from Bo Ying Ku. And I hope I said that he's watching from somewhere in the world. I hope I said that right. At our last council meeting, we had a presenter, and he had some discouraging words to say about one of our local business people. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Everybody's had the chance to read it. I am just going to point a few things out. My name is Bo Ying Ku, and sir, forgive me if I've said that wrong. The co-owner of the Wingham Creek Property Development and Wingham Creek A2A Development. And I'm going to go down to, we the co-owners suffered agony for 8 long years trying to exit this project and get returns for our investment. Okay? I had with me at the last council meeting a letter, and there was, 5 or 6 things that should have been done in the last year, and nothing got done. But we know why now, don't we? Because nobody really knows who controls it. So I'm going to further this a little bit. The problem this company has run into is nobody knows who legally controls it. And they've got about 30 days to come up with something, or they're going to lose a lot of money. And there's nothing this town or the county can do about it. So I'm going to read the last part I want to read on this. I believe it is, and it says, it was then that I pleaded to the professional body FIABCI, which is the International Real Estate Federation, Malaysia, and its president to help us look for someone in Canada whom we could trust. He introduced us to the former FIABCI Canada president, now director, Mr. Charles Sousa, S-O-U-S-A, who then contacted a local Wingham Ward-a-Winning realtor, owner of 7 property broker offices in Huron County, Mrs. Renata Cyber, and a lawyer, Mr. Philip Diaz, to ensure that our actions and transactions complied with justice and law in Ontario. Now, we all got this, and the reason I want to point this out again is, and it's no fault of Doug's. Doug has emailed me since then and was caught off guard because he'd heard rumors. We as a council and our staff are moving forward on several projects, as I said last time. This is one of them. But I want to say my regrets to Renata for the conversation that took place and what happened, because we all know as I just wrote, that she was approached. She did not go chasing them. She does not have to. Anybody in real estate right now doesn't have to go looking for work. It's there right in front of you. So I just wanted to point out on my Reeves report that I do apologize, and I sincerely believe that Doug did not realize the information he had was misinformation. And I've had conversations with him. If you guys are watching tonight, why don't the three of you get together, because that would give you the votes. Why don't you come before this council, and I think we have about 30 days to do it, or you're going to lose a lot of money, because that land, and we can't help it, will go back into pasture land. This council has done everything possible to make this work, but we're running out of road. So it's up to you guys, and I'm suggesting right now there's three of you can make it work, and you can do it in less than 30 days, because two of you do have the vote if you add the votes together. And you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna end it there for me. Council. Any councillor,
Yes, we will be.
you go ahead, Councillor Van Hittram. Hit her some. Ah, come on.
Maitland Valley had their first in-person meeting since March. They reviewed the year-to-date work plan. Most activities are up to date or will be very soon. Floodplain mapping update for Wyndham and Lower Town areas in North Huron and Lower Sturnberry is completed. The public information consultation is delayed due to the COVID. Public information sessions will be held mid to late October in Wyndham in the Night of Columbus Hall, pending the COVID situation.
Thank you, Councillor Van Henderson. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Comments by members. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I'm just feeling everybody out here. When I read about the Black Festival and Gil being here, and their, I don't know, just the approach, like I said, thinking out of the box, they are trying hard. And I was glad to hear that they've paid all the bills, so they're running without that deficit, which is so good. But they're gonna incur some costs about this idea of like building a stage. Is it something that we would like to do, is, donate something towards that stage?
I'll throw that out to council. I believe Mr. Sipes already said he's got a hammer.
I'm not very good at using it.
No.
I think we will. I think they'll probably approach us again, to be honest with you, Mr. Palmer. And I'm sure that there are ways we can help them. I just think it's just such a unique, a North Huron unique idea. So I think, and I think they'll have lots of people, I hope they'll have lots of people step forward, because we do not know what the future holds. But I think it's great the fact that some of the shut-ins and the elderly people that are just tired of being inside may have an opportunity to get out and enjoy a little bit of life again next year. Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead. Mrs. Van Henderson.
Thank you. I would like to remind people that corn and bean harvest is in full swing. So let's all be patient with large farm equipment on the roads. Look 3 times before you decide to pass. Farm equipment operators can't move or stop as fast as people in their cars. And remember, these are the people that put food on the table, that work hard so we all can have a local grown meal at the end of the day.
Thank you very kindly for that reminder. Anyone else? Mr.
I'd just like to comment on Carlton Terrace. It's beautiful going down there. I was just younger, so I have a lot of fun. It is beautiful, and
Get the bicycle
appreciate
going.
that very much.
Watch out for that crosswalk, come on anytime.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Slate.
Yeah, Bill, just to follow up to, I mentioned this pre-council, but the discussions about that crosswalk at Corin, I honestly do believe that we are going to see a significant change in driver behavior because of that crosswalk. That crosswalk is very visible, very open. I would argue that it's probably the more visible crosswalks that we have in a school zone, in the municipality, in the sense that it's got lights, it's got something that, it's definitely going to be, a traffic changer when you're leaving, Carling Terrace to head towards Diagonal, so, I thank, thank council for making that adjustment, and I think, based on the feedback we've got from residents and people that are walking to that area, I think, time will tell, but I think ultimately, I think we made the right decision from the looks of it. It's obviously still got one more asphalt left to go, but I think it's looking, and it's looking before winter, and that's the good thing. That's one of the good things that, I think it's on time, and relatively from what we've been told, it's on budget, so I think that's all good positives to have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any, we will go to bylaws. Bylaw number 55, 2020. A bylaw to provide for the municipal drain improvement to the township of North Huron in the county of Huron. Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020. Bylaw, I already read that.
You'll wanna read that one, just because we're only giving first and second reading and it's
Okay.
being provisionally adopted.
Thank you. Bylaw number 55, 2020, being a bylaw to provide for the municipal drain improvement for the township of North Huron in the county of Huron. Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020. Be introduced and read a first, second, time for provisionally adoption this 21st day of September 2020. Do I have a mover? Anita, seconder is Mr. Heffer. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 56, 2020, a bylaw to permit the regulation, the operation of off-road vehicles on municipal highways within the township of North Huron. This is finished. Do I have a mover?
So move.
And seconded by Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 57, 2020, a bylaw appoint the deputy fire chief for the fire department of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Heffer, I have Anita Van Hindersum. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 58, 2020, a bylaw to authorize the bereavement clerk to sign on behalf of council a software license agreement between the Corporation of Township of North Huron and InnoSoft Fusion Software for recreation management software. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. McBurney, I have Mr. Heffer. All in favor? Carries. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, October 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the North Huron Council Chambers. The next Economic Development and Recovery meeting will be held on Monday, September 28th, 2020 at 8 a.m. in the North Huron Chambers. The next Huron Police Services Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. here in the Chambers. Other business, Court of Revision, Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020. 13.1.1. Date of the Court of Revision and instruction to tender. That the Court of Revision for the Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020 be set for Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 at 9 a.m. and that the project be tendered by R.J. Burnside and Associations with results to be collected and presented subject to any appeals. And further, that the appeals must be received within writing within 10 days prior to the Court of Revision in accordance with the Section 52-2 of the Drain Act. RSO 1990, Chapter D17, amended by 2010 C16, Schedule 1 S21. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Seitz and I have Mr. Hever. All in favor? Carries. Members of the Court of Revision, that the members of the Court of Revision for the Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020 shall consist of the following three members, councillors.
So, through your worship, so now council needs to appoint 3 members of council to sit on the Court of Revision for the date that you just set, which will be Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 at 9 o'clock a.m. And we've had a couple members sit on the Court of Revision before, but just to reiterate what that process looks like, basically that's the opportunity for any landowners who are assessed under the drainage project to appeal their assessment, whether they believe they were assessed too high, assessed too low. Ultimately, the Court of Revision can't change the total amount of the project, but they can change around how the assessment is allocated to the different landowners.
Do you wanna just do a show of hands? I have Paul, I have Chris, I have Anita. That's all to put their hands up. Well, that worked out good.
So you have to move that motion. So the motion on the floor is that the council, that the members of the Quarter Revision for the Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020 shall consist of the following 3 members: Councillor Hefford, Councillor Palmer, and Councillor Van Hitterson.
Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Faulkner. Seconder, I have Mr. McBurney. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries. Confirmation bylaw. Bylaw number 59/2020 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Anita, and I have Trevor seconding. All in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council of Township of North Huron agrees there being no further business for the council. This meeting adjourns at 8:50. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor, seconder. I have Rick. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I don't think we got it.